You said my kids will never set foot in a school. That doesn't sound real open-minded. Well, I'm not trying to start trouble here. I mean, you guys can work that out in the woods.
You guys could work that out in the woods. Dr. Phil, it's such a paradox because they've assumedly made money because they plaster their kids all over social media for engagement bait, and that allows them to stay home and unschool their kids. And if they wanted to learn algebra, they would ask to learn algebra. But they didn't, so we just played with slime and went to the park. And that's science and gym. Hello, you stunning woman on the go. Welcome back to my channel. My name is David and you are watching Dismantling Hate. Now today we are getting back into Dr. Phil. We know Dr. Phil.
Open the door.
That's never not gonna be the cutaway joke for Dr. Phil, just so we're aware. But anyway, yes, we've reacted to Dr. Phil one other time on the channel. I was also in drag for that episode.
My wife gets a glimpse of me as Richie, husband.
Oh. Catch me out here trying to get a glimpse of Richie.
Get a glimpse of me. Only God knows the full totality.
Not me thirsting after the priest. Good God. Yeah, thirsting after the priest. Good start, David. Yeah, that's what we want to make people aware of.
You dumb whore.
And the title of the video that we're going to be watching is called The Fastest Growing Trend in American Education. And the description reads, welcome to the Dr. Phil Primetime YouTube channel. The Dr. Phil Primetime YouTube channel featuring Dr. Phil McGraw will share clips from America's top talk show host as he turns it up in prime time. That was a lot. Dr. Phil is on a mission to tackle issues that matter to you. Parents' rights, social media, education, homelessness, the fentanyl crisis, and so much more. No topic is out of reach. No cow is too sacred. Are my brows too high? Let me know in the comments. And nobody is too lost to find their way back. The trend that they're going to be talking about in this video is called homeschooling or unschooling. Sometimes they're used synonymously, but they in fact are not the same thing. And just in case you've never seen my beautiful face before, hi, my name's David, and I have a bachelor's of education, but I am also more than halfway done my master's of education with a specialization in neuroscience. Not just a hat rack and not just a pretty face. She's also a great she's also very educated. So I'm interested to see what direction Dr. Phil is going to take us in this video, because lately he's been coming off a little red pill, a little mashugana, if you will. So I'm gonna slide myself on over. We're gonna roll the intro and let's see what Dr. Phil thinks about homeschooling and unschooling. Good God, get me out of here, girl. No, we're gonna have a great time. Dismantling Hate starts now.
Open the door or I'm gonna throw rocks through your windows, you dumb whore. Want the money? I'll raise enough hell till you give in and give it to me.
If you want to see me paint this beautiful face, you can watch Dragmas Day 9 on my channel. I bet you have a lot of questions about what you're seeing right now, and that might help answer a few of them. No, that's probably wrong. It'll probably leave you with more questions than you came in with. But that's how things, wow, look at me getting on top. Nobody should be able to give you clear and definitive answers on everything. And if they do that, they're probably lying or don't know what they're talking about. Just like probably what we're going to get into in this video. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. I'm reacting blind. It's 12 minutes. Take a deep breath with me. Okay, Dr. Phil, let's see what you have to say.
Well, tonight I put together a look at interesting alternatives to traditional schooling. Now, are these perfect solutions? Well, no, of course not. But we're not striving for perfection.
Something about his voice and like his southern draw just feels very nostalgic to me. I don't think he's that great. He has exploited a lot of people throughout the years, so I'm not a fan of him anymore. But I was at one point in my life, big fan. Watched a lot of Dr. Phil, so been there. But I've moved on to bigger and better things like Judge Judy.
We're looking for excellence. We're looking for progress. And they are gaining in popularity. So see what you think as you're watching.
What? Yeah, things like unschooling are gaining popularity because of these crunchy alt-right moms who are just pulling their kids out of school, letting the wind take their education. If they wanted to learn algebra, they would ask to learn algebra. But they didn't, so we just played with slime and went to the park. And that's science and gym. That's usually the vibe of what happens here. But hey, maybe it's not today. Maybe I will be delightfully surprised. Did I talk about the fact that this is a hat? The way that the light is reflecting off of this hat is just, it's giving me all that ooh-ah-ah sensation. Oh, that hair is caught in my brow. Lash, I know things.
First, a movement called unschooling.
If our kids would ever come to
It's
us.
funny because I said, stop it. No, not me calling it. Yeah, we're out in the park and that's science. Okay, we got to go back a second here. We got to get every second of this. Pay attention now.
If our kids would ever come to us and ask us for traditional schooling, I would say no. I don't think they would. I think they're having so much fun.
Well, they also don't know what traditional schooling is. If they're out here kicking it at the park, nobody would want to go to traditional schooling if this is what they get to do all day. But what is fun is not always necessarily what is good, you know?
I definitely think the public education system gets it wrong. Kids in desks for 7 hours. It's not natural. Your brain's not making enough.
Yeah, okay, so let me just premise all of my ranting with this is that there are a lot of problems with the education system. 100%. Girl, I've seen it from the inside, the outside, the sidelines, up, above, and down below. I've seen it all. It's messy. It's not efficient. It's done very poorly in a lot of different ways. And in some situations, I'm sure that some kids sit in desks for 7 hours, but that's also not the reality for the vast majority of Western schools. But that hasn't been for the strong majority in the schools that I've worked in and seen and studied, which is a lot. It does stand to reason that if we had a universal basic income and each parent was educated enough in order to spend the time with their children to educate them in ways that were in some ways standardized, because there needs to be standards, but parents are the best positioned to educate their children. They are, but they are not the most educated always, and most of them don't have the privilege in order to not participate in money-making activities when those kids go to school. So it's not an option for most. It's not good for most. It's not worthwhile. It's not effective for most. That's what I mean. Okay.
And if you're sitting, unschooling is more free. We might not have anything structured in a day. It's not guaranteed that we're going to do anything that looks like learning, but knowing that no matter what you're doing, you're learning.
Unschooling works for us and our family. I read to them. My 6-year-old's reading comprehension is better than average. I don't know exactly what the metrics are because we don't
But if you don't know where the metrics are, then how do you know that it's average? And it's hard to just slap that label of everything is learning. And I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. Everything is learning. But it's messy. It's messy. A lot of folks think that unschooling is different from just being a good parent. Like what they're describing here, taking their kids out to be Tarzan in the woods and reading with them and being concerned about their reading level and having some sort of, albeit basic, but some sort of idea of where that level is. That should just be a part of you being a parent, whether your child is in a traditional classroom or not. That's actually not teaching them. That's just being a good parent. We need that educative background in order to effectively do that. I love that they're doing this for their kids. I support you, bestie. That's great. Oh, the color palette is probably just so right now. Hey, love that. It is, in fact, not enough though, but maybe we'll keep going. We're only 1 minute into this video.
We're teaching our kids lots of things that weren't covered in public school for us, and things that are more important than the Civil War dates or the atomic numbers. Learning happens outside. They're identifying.
Echo, what are atomic numbers?
The atomic number or nuclear charge number of a chemical element is the charge number
Oh.
of the atomic nucleus.
So that involves the periodic table of elements. Sure, like I get it. That's also not really what a lot of education is nowadays. Most people don't harp on the facts like that. I never did. I don't think I've ever really administered much of a test either. Like that's fair. As an adult, you can say that you didn't enjoy your school experience, but you also have to have the discernment to recognize that the experience that you had 30 years ago is not going to be the same thing that your children are going to go through. Yeah.
Because they're genuinely curious about their environment.
Correct.
Our kids have learned gardening, crawfish hunting, fishing, foraging for wild food. They've learned.
And like I said before, you should be doing all of these things in addition to reading, writing, arithmetic, and all the other things. Social sciences, music. You should have it all. This is a great supplement. This is a great extracurricular to a nice school day.
To care for animals, collect eggs, how to manage a fire if it gets out of control. It's
great.
How to build shelters.
They could do that Netflix show where they survive in the outdoors. That's fun. That's setting them up for success. It's the premise of a TV show. It's not the premise for somebody's actual life. These kids aren't going to be able to get a high school diploma or go to college if they want to, or do anything that requires some sort of standardized testing. And hey, I hate standardized testing. I think it's dumb, but in a lot of ways it is necessary.
Hudson and I have been working on a fairy village, collecting sticks, adding things like
Okay, well, that's cute as hell.
moss and mushrooms.
Love it.
We've hatched our own eggs, so we end up with roosters that we don't need. We don't do extensive butchering, but Hudson's gone through with that whole process with me.
We're not like dependent on our
I mean, I would be grossed the hell out, but honestly, that's great. That's great. Slay. If that kid is interested in doing that, that's awesome.
meat
That's not in place of math.
we have here, but it's important skill. That's part of the unschooling for us is if you need to, you know how to turn an animal into meat. There's so many benefits to just being barefoot. It's called grounding. It's balance.
Yeah. Sure. There is a little bit of science that can support what she's about to talk about. That's a big red flag for Crunchy Mom alt-right pipelining stuff. Please tell me she's in an MLM. That would really that would make the most sense.
Your cardiovascular system, again, helps you think. It's more conducive to learning. We think that nature goes hand in hand with a healthy life.
Correct.
You
Correct.
actually have a master's degree, and it's in interdisciplinary studies, education, recreation.
Yeah.
Interdisciplinary studies. Echo, what does a master's in interdisciplinary studies mean?
From alumnus.edu, the Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies provides graduate students the opportunity to complete a tailored program of study that integrates knowledge and scholarship from 2 or more disciplines traditionally associated with a Master of Arts.
Okay, so it's typically associated with a Master of Arts, and it has 2 or more disciplines in what can usually be a custom program. So, okay, it sounds good. It sounds very broad. Very broad. Breadth and not depth, you know? It's fun to say. Say it with me. Breadth, not depth. This is an ASMR. Okay, her eyes, gorgeous.
A lot of different disciplines, philosophy. Did it work for you?
I didn't get a job in any of those things, no. But I think some of the things that I learned I could apply into what we're doing now.
Okay.
Okay.
And Nick, you have a master's degree in philosophy.
Correct.
Right. Are you glad you did that?
I wouldn't have paid for it. I don't use it. I could have pursued all the primary literature myself. I met my wife at graduation, but
There you go.
yeah,
There is that.
yeah.
Okay. You say your children will never set foot in a classroom.
I don't think so, no. I can't see a reason they would want to go to public school. We have a really strong vision for what we want for our kids in their future. 1, we want them to be well-rounded socially. 2, we want them to have a strong foundation.
But the social skills of being in a classroom is something that deserves to be talked about here as well. You learn so much working with different people that are different from you in a classroom setting, and you're not getting that in a family setting like this. You're not. You can have lots of friends and go out and do all of that, but the amount of time that kids spend together in classrooms, there's so much time there. You cannot replicate that in the same kind of like potent social dynamics that occur throughout the school experience. You're not getting that being Tarzan out in the woods.
Physical health, and I don't think you get that sitting in a desk. We want them playing all day. And then 3rd, we just really want them to have a say in their own life and their own future from an early age. We really do think that they can think for themselves. They are whole humans.
What she's saying is great. I wonder if they're transphobic. I just, because it just, that's just me. That's just me. But this isn't about me. Oh, wait. It is.
And that kids should be able to choose their path sooner in life rather than waiting till 18 or around that age to start taking electives or making decisions like that.
Okay.
Is this about your experience in school? You said school crushed you.
It was not good. Looking back from 5 on, just in school, I knew what I was good at and what I wasn't good at, right? I was good at writing, I was good at public speaking, I was good at art, and that was it. Math, not so much. But when you are forced to do math and like you keep going up this level of, they make you do more of what you're not good at. You know what I mean? They really do. So I didn't get to do extra writing or reading or art, the things I was naturally talented at.
Okay.
But they give you extra periods of math. If that's the one thing you're
No, I see someone with pink hair and pronouns in the front row. Yeah, what she's saying, that's fair. That's fair. Totally fair. And they are not representing usually the most outlandish examples we see of unschooling all over the internet. They're actually being pretty okay. They haven't said anything so far that's been specifically outlandish or like discriminatory or anything, but I haven't heard how they're providing an actual educative experience to their children beyond that of just being good parents, you know?
And they really lay that on thick. And what that does to self-esteem is it does crush you. Yeah. And it makes you hate.
It crushes you if you have shitty teachers.
You're bored if you're being really drilled.
And shitty teachers are a problem. They are. There's lots of them. I'm sure some would even think I fit into that category, but you can't win them all, you know?
That you don't think's important, that it's not really meeting your natural needs. It makes school just dreadful, honestly.
You think public school doesn't listen to children?
Correct.
They don't.
A lot of adults don't. Yeah, I'll give it to them there, yeah.
Them don't tailor things to them, which I can't argue with that. I mean, they kind of have a one-size-fits-all.
Yes.
Right? And you think that...
That's what you would think, but unfortunately, a lot of teachers are forced to differentiate with not enough resources, because ultimately you can say one size fits all, but when you are on the ground standing in front of those little soul-sucking Cailloux with a lesson plan, half of them can't do it, and the other half are beyond that. So you have to differentiate. You have to diversify what you're doing, kind of on the fly and with not enough resources. So it's like the worst of both worlds.
That's not good for the children.
I don't think so, no.
So you're having them do whatever they want to do, which is like build a fairy village, which is a way to learn geometry, math, angles.
Like it's not, though. I can understand how that comparison is made, but it's not.
That in an applied way.
Yes, and they're still really, really young right now. Hudson is first grade age, but it'll continue to be things like this, hands-on ways of learning. You can learn math. I think my real struggle with math was that it didn't make sense to me, just doing numbers on a page over and over. There was no.
You need both, actually. You need theory and practice, not just theory and not just practice.
Visual to it. But if they're learning how to, like we're renovating a property, if the boys learn how to build a house, if they're learning math in an applied way, I feel like that's way more effective and it's going to stick with them.
And you were pointing...
Like, yes, all of those things are important, but from a neurological perspective, the way that you need to return things at specific intervals so the brain remembers it, and how you need to learn things in such a way that it's scaffolded. You can't just jump into division. You have to have a solid understanding of addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Well, multiplication arguably, but you need an actual understanding of the base level things before you can move on to the next harder thing. And when you are doing things in just an applied way like this, you're not going to have the succession of learning tasks in order to actually have somebody remember a concept. Like, it's good. Building a house would be great if you already had an understanding of mathematics, but you can't start your journey of mathematics by learning how to build a house. It doesn't work like that.
They learn by looking at a speedometer, looking at things just in the real world. I
think there's a quote by John Holt, and it's, we learn and remember the things that we seek out and come across naturally in daily life.
Sure, that's right.
It's so true. Even as adults, like the stuff we really know and that we're good at, it's something that we've come across and we found a need, and you're just organically coming across something that you're curious about, passionate about, excited about, then you're going to want to learn it and you're going to absorb all of it.
True, but all the things in your life that you are currently passionate about, at one point you didn't know that thing existed. So how are you going to continue to grow and learn as a person if you aren't exposed to things that you're not immediately passionate about? You could be missing out on so much of the world.
Teaching them things like fire safety and hunting and how to survive.
Because you have to teach kids how to be careful when they're playing with fireworks. I'm pausing so much because this is really boring, team.
In the wilderness, things like that, which come in pretty handy.
Yeah, these are things that are just very interesting to boys naturally, and you know.
No. You get your heteronormativity out of here, Nick.
Yeah, have extra time to develop those skills. Why not?
Do you worry that there's a social aspect missing, a relational aspect missing, a competitive aspect missing, the flow of commerce is missing?
We don't want them to get into the flow of commerce, I think. Like when we look at 9-to-5s and what some people call the rat race, like, are people truly happy?
Please tell us about your MLM.
So it's kind of, we're not wanting them to get on the conveyor belt. Absolutely. We're wanting them to think for themselves. But as far as like the social
You seem to be
aspect,
thinking for them.
you could say that to someone who was sending their kids to a public school without asking them what they want to do. You know, I think that
You know what? That is kind of fair. But it also is the law, truancy, and not that the laws are the be-all, end-all of the moral standard and what's right. But yeah, okay, Taylor.
telling kids what to think and what to do. Schools, that's exactly what they do. Is you have to learn this, and this. That's telling kids what to think.
That's an old.
But have you spent any time in a school? Because yeah, some people do that. Some teachers do that. But good ones don't.
Was an interest in going camping.
He wanted to challenge himself, and so he did 48 hours straight. He camped overnight.
Wanted to support him in any way we could, and we got a fire going, and we built our own teepee. This was all.
That's great. That's awesome. Good for you. That is a weekend activity, not Monday morning.
Just him leading the way. Some people would be concerned about spending 48 hours outside, a 6-year-old by himself.
To most people, that sounds like really intense, right?
6-year-old? Yeah, because like bears exist.
Sending out our child outside for 48 hours. But we know our property.
We know what our 6-year-old is capable of because we spend all day with them. We're watching them. We know that.
You think your 6-year-old that weighs 50 pounds like that could fight off an actual predator in the wild? Like an animal? Jesus.
Confident and taking care of himself.
And camping is good for little boys.
Why little boys? Why isn't it good for little girls? If my parents did that to me when I was a kid, I probably would have never talked to them again. Good Lord.
You've gotten a lot of negative social comments about this. Why did you go public with it to begin with? Why did y'all put it out there?
That's a good question. So I was actually going to be a teacher. I got my master's, and part of it was education, elementary education. I got my teacher certificate. I was doing student teaching when I became pregnant with Hudson, our oldest.
Okay, so she does understand at least a little bit. If you haven't practiced, it's very different. I'm a very different person now after 5 years of teaching experience than I was when I graduated. So there is a big difference there. Again, it's the difference between theory and practice, but it stands to reason she's practicing some of these things now, so okay.
And then that was when I kind of looked around and realized, I don't actually want to work here, and I don't want my kids to learn here either. So I had to find a new career on my own. So I started teaching myself social media so that I could do it for brands, just be a freelancer, and I could stay home doing that job.
Well, that's not really how that works. And obviously you can tell that it didn't work because she's not working for brands. She became her own. And how do you do that quite easily is be outlandish and use clickbait and be unschooler. Okay. Did we get it? Did we just get it? I think we got it. We got it. Kylie, we got it.
And so I was just posting about my life to practice social media, and then it ended up blowing up, and that became our full-time job.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised?
Get out of here, Muppet Robin. Yeah, I also have that same face of like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't buy that one bit.
That you guys got so much negative feedback?
Not necessarily. And some people have a very strong emotional reaction to you criticizing what they went through as a child.
Some of the comments.
What does that even mean? Criticizing what you went through as a child? That doesn't make sense.
Got is no one is this stupid.
Yes, they are.
Child Protective Services is calling.
Well, I mean, they're treating their children seemingly quite well, but they're not really giving them an education, which I guess makes sense.
Educational neglect. What about learning
Correct.
like actual stuff?
Correct.
Social skills, 0.
Correct.
Love
Well, maybe.
Sad beige children get their life ruined
Because of their mentally underdeveloped parent. That's so sad. That might be true.
because their mentally undeveloped parent.
Mm-hmm.
Someone save these kids.
Probably.
Isn't it so telling that the public school kids grew up to be such bullies online? So I think that
That's a logical fallacy right there. I don't know which one, and it's been a long day, so I'm not looking it up.
Indicative of the whole system. What shocks me the most is that they just wouldn't believe that's what he wanted to do, was learn how to transplant plants. And people were saying, put him on Fortnite like a regular kid. And it's indicative of our school system that we don't see kids as whole humans that could possibly have any interests or skills outside of what's in this box.
It's really hard because she's saying some good things, but the other half don't make sense and aren't really valid in this conversation. So she has something valuable to say, but not all of it. Not all of it at all. I don't think she's qualified to be here on Dr. Phil. But then again, who is Dr. Phil even qualified? Exactly.
How the system is set up. Kindergartners are capable of this. First graders are capable of this. Second graders this. We put this ceiling on kids based on what age they are and what they...
Yes and no, because you can always go above that ceiling, but there are standards, so you can move on to the next grade. And that almost serves as like communication between one teacher and then the teacher of the next grade level, so you know what to teach. And like things have to be organized and structured to some extent in order for people to learn. I agree it could be done differently, but not like this.
Interested in. And no one could believe that he was interested in something like gardening.
Nick, you say...
That I don't find that hard to believe at all. You're outside, you're digging in the dirt, there's worms. Where does this go? That flower's pretty. Oh, that smells nice. Very sensory. I have had my gardening phases, not currently. Wouldn't be caught dead gardening now, but I had my phase, I had my phase. Loved those purple inch plants. Was obsessed. Anyway.
Kids wanted to try school to socialize more. You'd be okay with that?
At a certain age, I don't know what that age would be, but there's certainly a situation, where
the jawline on this man is just outstanding.
This 16 gets a girlfriend, there's a very obvious pressure with that kind of thing.
How is he gonna find a girlfriend or boyfriend? Nobody said he couldn't be gay, but how is he gonna find a partner? How is he gonna have the skills to do that? I mean, people who even go to school don't have the skills to do that usually. Actually, no, that's a lie. People are in relationships everywhere. Never mind.
We're not trying to control our kids. We're not trying to brainwash them. They're going to go do what they want to do in the rest of their lives. That's what we want them to do.
But they can't. And you close a lot of doors when you do this unschooling thing. Their options out in the world are reduced dramatically when you do this unschooling stuff.
Train them for their values, the foundation that we're trying to instill in them, their independence, that's already going to be there. So whenever they do decide to leave the nest, that's what we want them to do.
Well, you're not a big favor of that.
No, I just don't see it happening, but I'm also open-minded, and that's how we try to raise them. So
Sure.
When he's 16, I'm open-minded to see what happens at that point.
You said my kids will never set foot in a school. That doesn't sound real open-minded.
It wasn't an exact quote, Dr. Phil, but
Don't test him. Dr. Phil knows.
I think that they will.
Well, I'm not trying to start trouble here. I mean, you guys can work that out in the woods.
Yeah.
You guys could work that out in the woods. Dr. Phil, you better stop.
Why does it need to be either or, unschool or school? I mean, this looks like what a lot of people call camp, or what you do after school, or what you do in the summer.
Okay, that's exactly what I was saying. He was really awful in the last video that we watched, but he's doing good here. If I said anything negative about Dr. Phil in this video, because if I did, he didn't deserve it in this specific video, but overall it still applies. But there's still a minute left.
Most parents don't do stuff like this with their kids after school because they're
True.
at a job. Because everyone has such a different life and what they want, what their values are, and how they
It's such a paradox because they've assumedly made money because they plastered their kids all over social media for engagement bait, and that allows them to stay home and unschool their kids. It's a very snake eating its own tail kind of moment.
life set up.
You can be a very involved parent and try to pass on, your values and these things, but you have to understand the reality is your kid is in a public education system with peers who are not great. You have teachers that are uninspired.
What do you mean peers who are not great? All those other kids are trash? What an awful thing to say. There's good people and there's bad people everywhere, and you actually need the skills to discern the difference between the two, and that's what you're learning in school. Yikes. You can't just protect them forever. Eventually you will die. Not in like a morbid, thready way. Parents die. Kids need to be able to function on their own. You want independence.
For the most part, teachers that are more worried about, their administrators than they are the kids. And that's just how the
There's something to be said there, absolutely.
system is built, and that's not fair to the kids.
Correct.
It could be what we think is what we're doing is ideal. You know, public school works for most people, and that's okay. And parents can fill in a lot of gaps. But
if they go to get a job later and they say, well, what's your training in math? They say, well, I can read a speedometer, I can build stuff.
I can build a garden gnome fairy hut or whatever that was.
Tell you the math involved, or I can't use a protractor, or I can't tell you how I can do it, but I can do it because I have experience, which could be true. But are they going to be really competitive career-wise if they don't have any training in the educational system at all?
Yes. I think they'll be more successful. I think they will have so long to work on these skills, and they'll have case studies. And right now, like when you we watched your college episode recently, you can get so many jobs with just having experience or knowing somebody. And people want someone who can do a job. They don't really care about the paper anymore. It doesn't mean as much as it used to. People want someone who's capable, and I think their kids will be very, very capable.
And people in the community
To a point.
to help kids. I mean, that's kind of a taboo thing. Like you send your kids to public school because those are the experts, right? But people in the community, retired people, they want to instill, whatever they learned in life in kids. I mean, that's a natural thing. And you can get that with homeschooling because there aren't as many time boundaries.
There is something to be said about oral storytelling and having a strong connection with other people in your life, and that aids development and learning in numerous ways. True, absolutely. But you can also do that evenings and weekends. That was the end, thank God. Okay. All right, girly wigs, that brings us to the end of this episode of Dismantling Hate. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. If you're interested in more like teachery stuff, I do have other teacher videos in my Dismantling Hate playlist, but then I also have a playlist called Activism and Education, where I've spent a lot of time making videos about specific education topics. I made those videos for assignments for my master's program. So, there's a few other educative things that you can peruse at your leisure. Or if you like the Dismantling Hate vibes, you want to see me talk about some queerness, gay stuff, all of that other misogyny, hateful, fat phobia, racism, all that other stuff, you can watch other Dismantling Hate videos. You can watch me paint this face on day 9 of Dragmas. I got a lot of content out here on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Good Lord. Yeah. There's just a million ways to support me. God, it's been a long day. Okay. Yeah, subscribe to the channel if you liked what you saw here today. If you made it this far in the video, leave that little pencil emoji down there in the comments. So thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next week. Goodbye. Country boy, I love you.